Today's segment of Oh Brother is sponsored by Trivia with Reed. Play Trivia with Reed each Monday night at Innisfree Irish Pub in Birmingham and each Tuesday night at Steel. For more information, visit myspace.com/trivia with Reed. That's Reed with 2 E's.
So southern, they'll get up for you for nothing. Take this brother known for many. You need some sisters getting.
Welcome into the Monday edition of Oh Brother. I'm Will Lochamy along with Reed Lochamy. Come to you from the Brandon Brown and Country Western Delight Studios where it is cold.
Chilly, Will.
And it's been cold, Reed.
It has been.
We've had a bit of a weather event here in Alabama. A couple of big days. We had a snow event, and then we had Alabama winning the national championship.
That wasn't weather, though.
No, that was not a weather event. But they all kind of tied in, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So, anyway, snow event in Alabama, and we've got this one meteorologist who's the most popular meteorologist by far, and you can attribute that for several reasons.
Yeah.
He's been around for a long time. He's very likable.
He's the best one.
He's the best one.
Right.
So everybody kind of goes to him when they think it's going to snow or there's going to be some kind of big weather thing going on. But then if that doesn't happen, like last week when it didn't really accumulate that much, he seems to get a lot of the blame, and I wish we could just ask him what that's like.
Well, good news. I've been working on a magic trick recently where I can make it sound like James Spann is here. So we're going to try right now. James Spann, are you here?
Yes.
Look at, wow.
That's incredible, Reed.
And I did it just with this one handkerchief. That's amazing.
James Spann, welcome on. Do you find that you get a lot of the blame when these things don't happen like they say?
Well, yeah, one of the things I write with every single winter weather threat we have, some people are going to be delighted, some people are going to be severely disappointed.
Right.
And we never know exactly, which population group that's going to be. And in the case of this one this week, it was the Birmingham Metro, so that's the big population base. So,
right. Now, how far in advance do you start? Can you see this stuff coming? Like, I think it's going to snow on this date. How far in advance do you see that?
There is reasonable skill out to 7 days. There's skill in identifying systems out to 16 days, but you don't know the timing or the intensity. But once you get within 7 days, you've got reasonable skill. And then nailing down the specifics, it's very hard to do until sometimes right until it's staring you in the face. And in this case, we had the one that, in fact, the forecast was perfect. If you live in Gadsden or Coleman or Hamilton, we said a dusting to 1 inch. For those folks, that's exactly what they got. We talked about 1 to 2 inches for Birmingham and Point South, and for Jefferson and Shelby counties, it was a few snowflakes, but no accumulation at all. So that was a horrible forecast. But then again, if you go south of Anniston, in Clay and Randolph counties, they had 1 to 2 inches, right as forecast, major driving problems and all that. So, depending on where you are, either we're idiots or we're heroes.
Well, I've got a question for you, James, about that, because I know myself, I still sort of feel like a kid at heart when these snow things come about. I know some people don't like the snow. Every time I think there's a chance for it, I get very excited. And yesterday when I started to realize that it wasn't going to materialize the way that, I had sort of been hoping, I felt very disappointed. I remember thinking, boy, I wonder how James Spann feels about these things when you know that you've got a whole city who's sort of rooting for what you kind of were leading us to believe, hey, that's going to happen. What is that realization like for you? What do you think from your position?
Again, I've been doing this for so long that I'm very used to it, and we know going into anything like that, you're going to have a bust somewhere within there. You just don't know where it is. So it's not a surprise that it's going to happen. You just hope that it doesn't happen for, Tuscaloosa or Birmingham. And in this case, it did. Both of those cities, the forecast was a bust. So, but I don't have that, sour, dejected feeling. We just get in there and look at it and try and figure out what happened and do better next time. It's like a football player. You lose a game, you study and you look, see what you did wrong, and you go out there and do it better the next time so you don't lose again.
Well, speaking of football, this snow event, or lack thereof, happened on the day of the national championship game. So, of course, it wasn't going to affect the game in California, but it maybe was going to affect the game being televised here in Alabama because, as we know, when there's a major weather event, a lot of times the weathermen need to cut in to warn people, hey, listen, be careful of this or this or this. Now, didn't I hear something about you getting some emails or some mail threatening you about this?
Well, what happened apparently early in the week, some of the sports talk shows were telling people that we were going to break into the football game and do these live reports and run maps and crawls and all this kind of stuff. And to this day, I don't exactly know the origin of that, but the minute those guys did that, the email inbox just lit up. It almost exploded with this really nasty, threatening stuff. I never got any death threats. They talked about that on ESPN, that I got death threats, and that's not true. Nobody threatened to kill me, but some of it was pretty nasty. And so I wrote a post on our blog, which is a very high-traffic blog during winter weather type events, just saying, look, this is going to be a light snow event. We don't do long-form coverage for that anyway. We're not going to bother you with any crawls or maps or cut-ins. The game will be seen totally uninterrupted. And then later that day, one of the local sports guys just went ballistic when he read that, and he called me a liar and a fraud.
I wonder who that was. It couldn't be a former guest on this show.
No, certainly not.
No, it was Paul, and I've known Paul for 30 years. I mean, it's that's just what he does. He stirs the pot, and so I don't know what set him off with that, but he suggested, well, he's lying. He's going to do it anyway, and so based on that, that's when some of the national newspapers and media entities picked it up, and it got kind of like a circus atmosphere. But of course, now that the game's over and they had no maps or calls or interruptions, all that has settled down. But it was a bizarre week where the two things collided. My greatest fear would be a tornado outbreak during that game. That would be a real problem. But after Alabama won the SEC championship game, we started making plans even back then of what we're going to do if we have a tornado outbreak, and we were going to buy airtime on another TV station to take care of it.
Well, James, I'm going to just make an admission here. I have in the past found myself at times, not while watching you, but while watching some of these other detestable weathermen in our market, found myself thinking, oh man, why is this guy spending so much time seemingly just repeating information, and to me it's not seeming very helpful when maybe a crawl at the bottom of the screen could get the same message across. So what do you say to people who find themselves being frustrated when the thing they're wanting to watch on television, and it's a weather event that's, for example, not affecting their neighborhood? How do you respond to that? What do you say to those people?
The good response is that all this goes away in just a few years. We'll have fiber in our homes, and we'll have all this bandwidth. You'll have high definition, thousands of channels, and we'll have the bandwidth not to ever have to do that again. I think we're about 5 years away. But in the short term, and we kind of set that policy. We started that aggressive coverage when I came over here in the mid-'90s. We formed the station in 1996, and my philosophy is, if there's a tornado warning, then people want to watch that. It should be a long-form thing, and the ratings kind of bore that out. And what's funny, up until this week, the highest-rated program ever on this channel was the tornado coverage December 16, 2000. That was a Tuscaloosa tornado that killed 11 people.
Oh, wow.
We had the tornado live on the tower cam.
Huh.
That generated the highest ratings, including all Alabama football games, Auburn football games,